So tonight we have a special guest, James Knight from Knight Customs. Is going to join us live. So tonight we have a special guest. We're going to bring him in a second. So a quick introduction. So James Knight from Knight Customs is going to join us live tonight in a minute. And we're going to talk about rock rolling, like a really cool project. Something that at Hearns we start doing recently, a bit more of design and 3D manufacturing, and James has been pioneering this for the past, I don't know, he's going to tell us for for quite a few years, I think. So are we all ready to bring in James?
Yeah, I think we should. Let's get him.
Awesome. All right, here we go.
Hey,
welcome,
guys.
James.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
How we doing, Sam?
So
really well, thank you.
Right. Very good. So we've quite a few people live tonight, so quite a few have been waiting for this catch up with you, James, tonight. And so I guess we can have a start and tell us when and why you started Knight Customs.
Yeah. So I was probably about 9 years old, like many people that found that Tamiya catalog in the hobby shop.
Yeah.
That was many years ago. And I haven't really stopped playing with RC cars since. So from, the Wild One and the early Tamiya Hilux, which I wanted and never got when I was a kid. In my sort of 20s, I was able to start collecting vintage cars that I could then have money for. And so more recently, 2013, I started Knight Customs to basically take advantage of 3D printers, or the availability of 3D printers, where I found I could, in restoring some cars and improving new kits, I could make parts and 3D print parts, and then make them available via Shapeways, and it turned into a little bit of a business. So that was nearly 8 years ago. Time's flown.
8 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
So ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I started off just doing a little engine for the back of the Tamiya Sand Scorcher, which you can kind of see behind me there. I wanted to do an engine, and I realized I could, because I'm an industrial designer, so I went to school to learn how to be a designer and design things. And my generation of designers, it was when they first introduced CAD, so I knew how to 3D model. And Shapeways had just started making a print service available to everyone. And so I made the engine, and I had friends on Tamiya Club, and I was like, I've made this engine. Everyone's like, well, can we get one? So I put up Shapeways, let you do a store where you can sell your parts and they print them for you. And that kind of snowballed into, started with an engine, then it went to a driver, and we have over 500 parts now. You can, if you don't have a printer, you can order. And then more recently, we have a My Manufactory store where if you have a printer, you can just buy our files and print them for your own use.
That's brilliant. I guess the 3D manufacturing in the past 10 years or so has evolved substantially, speed and quality. And today we can really print in our houses virtually anything, I guess. That's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I get a lot of requests if I'm going to buy a 3D printer, what should I buy? And I always, it used to be you'd have to spend $2,500 US dollars to get a pretty good printer, but you'd have to really know how to use it and keep it running. Now you can get the Ender 5 Pro, which is the one I normally recommend, is an FDM printer. So it's a basic style, makes pretty good parts. It's $500. And a lot of the people that use my parts use that printer, and you can get it doing fantastic prints. And for $500, that sets you up for sort of a lifetime of parts, when the print material only costs $40 or $50 to get a new spool. So it's amazing how that's changed. And there's 3 or 4 different types of printer now as well. So it's certainly, if you're into a hobby and you're committed and invested, it's an easy tool to add to the workshop.
Absolutely. And that's great. So as everyone knows, we start doing some 3D manufacturing recently as well. We're more doing the little models, little figures like this. But I guess what James has been designing is fantastic for the Tamiya cars, and I guess you end up moving towards crawlers at some point, I guess.
Yeah, it started with vintage Tamiya, and once you've collected them and restored it to box art, you were then doing a custom version. So that's kind of where I started. And I was very lucky at the time to be living in California. and there's a lot of the RC industry in California. So I was meeting people and talking, and I met a guy, and he was like, "We know you should look at this crawling stuff. I think you'd really like it. It's like scale. It's like the vintage stuff, but it's these new platforms." And I got an Axial SCX10, the 2012 JK, the Jeep JK, the 4-door.
Yeah.
And at the time it was amazing, ready to run. It looked like a Jeep. It was officially licensed. It went off road, but the grill was Lexan and it didn't have any details. So I was like, well, I'll make a grill for that. And then I made a snorkel for it, and then I made a roof rack. And it got to a point where Axial, the company, came to me and said, hey, we can help you make more parts because you're making parts for our Jeeps. We're selling more Jeeps because more people are accessorizing. So that was the first kind of partnership collaboration. And they introduced me to a lot of the full-size one-to-one companies. So we started doing officially licensed bumpers. Like our first licensor was Schmidt-Built, which are they do full-size bumpers and fenders. And so we were then doing like the officially licensed parts for the axle Jeep. And now we've got over 20 licensors. We do Front Runner Outfitters, which I think is even a popular brand here in Australia. Rotor Packs. So I'm forgetting everyone, but and that really is where the bulk of our business has been, because as you guys know, the crawler scene has really kind of exploded. It's great for the family. It's something you can, put on the shelf and then come back to a week later, charge it up, and you can go for an hour walk with the family and you can get everyone involved. And the events that we were doing in California were just family camping, and everyone was driving an RC car. So that community blew up, and we were able to sort of help, be part of the community. And of course, everyone wants a Jeep, but no one wants the same Jeep. So everyone wants a different roof rack and a different snorkel. And so we really helped, because with 3D printing, we can make, parts available with sort of no tooling investment. And as many people on the call might know, is if you want to make a plastic snorkel, you have to go to a manufacturer. You have to make 10,000 of them, and you have to sell all 10,000 for it to be able to sell cheaply. And there aren't always 10,000 people that want that one snorkel. So 3D printing has been great for doing low volume, large inventory stock, because it's all digital until you print it. And so, we've, like I said, we've got over 500 parts to accessorize your RC cars on our Shapeway store, which, you just couldn't do with traditional manufacturing accessories. That it wouldn't be a profitable business model. Absolutely.
And I guess your biggest project has been this new Element RC, collaboration. So how did this come about?
Yeah, it was really great to see, and actually also how popular it's been in Australia just in the pre-launch, because in the US, the Toyota, they don't have a Hilux, they have the Tacoma, which is sort of like the slightly bigger brother of the Toyota Hilux, which obviously is the world's most famous Toyota. So over the years, like I was saying, there's lots of companies in California. We'd go to lots of events, we'd meet companies, and sort of throughout the years, I'd been working at sort of I started doing parts with the Axial's help, and then I did a body for Proline. I did an interior for Vanquish for the original VS410, which is now used in the current Pro and the Ultra. And as Element was starting, a lot of people from it's a very relatively small industry, so a lot of people at Element had been at other RC companies, and so they knew me, and they basically said, "Hey, we're starting this new brand. We'd just love to connect with you, and if there's any opportunities." So that was like 4 years ago now, I think. I posted a picture the other day, and I met the lead designer at Element, who's the lead designer for Team Associated, looks after all the programs, and he had a bunch of questions and was getting into the crawling scene because he hadn't done a crawler before. So we got chatting, and then over the years they did a couple of releases. We got more and more talking. I had an idea for something I wanted to do. And I was talking to them, and they had a project they wanted to do, and actually sort of was almost the same project. So we were like, well, let's do this together. And that was pretty cool. I got, it definitely turned out, I was just trying to get a body made, like a Lexan body, and they wanted to do a new Ready to Run. And I was like, okay, I'll help you if I can do the body. And we ended up doing the whole car. And obviously it's the existing Enduro chassis. I've got one here which is the Knightrunner. So like I said, This is a sort of inspired by the Toyota Tacoma, which is super popular in the US. It's the US version of the Hilux, but is like here in Australia, the US, they do a lot of overlanding. They do the rooftop tent. This is a bed tent, but it's the same tent. They just put it in the bed rather on the roof. So it's a very, this is a very similar style vehicle that you might see in Australia. Super popular in the US. So we kind of, we build it off of, sort of a super custom version of a very popular truck. It's officially licensed, sort of DeMello. This is an off-road full-size company, do these super sweet custom bumpers, front runner racks. This is my upgraded version. So you get the roof bed, you get the bed rack and the rooftop tent, which is front runner officially licensed. You get the DeMello bumpers, but you don't get the extra rear rack and roof rack and Pelican cases and inner fenders. Those I make available separately, so it allows you to kind of buy the basic ready to run, and then you can either print my parts yourself, or you can go on Shapeways and we sell them to you printed, and then you can customize your front runner. Sorry, it's a Knightrunner. Nice. The name's still a bit crazy to me because I'm like, you want to call it Knightrunner? Okay, all right. I just want to get my logo on the box. I didn't actually want to be part of the name. Because if you hadn't picked up James Knight Customs, then that's the Knightrunner. But it was actually pretty cool to kind of see it and see how well it's been received.
As somebody that's been playing with or in the RC segment since you were 9 years old, I think you said, it must be so exciting to see your name on a box.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been something I've been working on for a while, ever since I started designing RC parts. I was like, how do I get my name on a box?
Everyone's brain.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
How excited I get about boxes. Well, that's later.
I know it's tough because I think you guys know, but it's a bit of a dilemma because the Element really brought an innovation to the scale market by the box turns into a scale garage, which is you can fold it down and you get it out for your pictures when you want to do Instagram. You can fold it back up. I used to have a giant, dollhouse garage with the working, like the whole thing, but it took up such a big chunk of the workshop, and I don't have the space for that here. So the boxes are awesome, but I can't take apart the box for the Knightrunner because it's got my logo on it, and I don't want to. It's like I don't want to destroy the box, so I kind of need another box. I guess I know a guy, so I have to work on that.
Yeah, it was actually one of the cool features. I think we might have done it in boxing or when they come into store, the Element front runners. And I said, how cool is this? That they've gone to the forethought of putting a design inside the box, so you can make it like your own diorama. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and in this sort of day of throwing everything away and not wanting to scrap stuff, it's a great way to recycle the box. So sort of kudos to them. It was a great innovation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think the other innovation with the Element crawlers is the IFS. Yeah. Yeah,
it's funny because I remember when I started talking to Aaron. We were at Axle Fest like 2016, 2017, and we were talking about what is not in the market, what is no one doing, and I was like, no one's doing a proper IFS. Because Tamiya had the CC01, but that wasn't really, as you guys know, it's not really a proper crawler. It's a great scale chassis, but it's not. And everyone was like, why would you do an IFS? Like, straight axles are so much better. Who'd want an IFS? And we were like, but once you've got like 10 straight axle trucks, like, then what? So Aaron kind of, we had a discussion. We were sort of joking that IFS would be awesome, but no one would buy it because it wouldn't perform. But Aaron was sort of like, I'm gonna make that happen because obviously, as you know, there are certain vehicles that they have to come with their IFS. So for the scale guys, and I'm one of those guys, I want the vehicle to look and work like a real vehicle. And I have a performance rig that's like fully tricked out and all weighted properly, and it's a comp rig. But if I want something that just looks like a real vehicle, and I can get low and take pictures and drive it on the trail, you have to have an IFS if you some of these vehicles. So the trail runner was the first vehicle they brought the IFS out on. You give up, you do. It's not. No one will. There's very few. It's still capable. You can still have a lot of fun. You can crawl things. In some ways, it makes it more fun because if you have a fully dialed rig, you just drive over everything, and it gets a little boring. When you've got IFS, you've got to really plant your wheels, and it might lift a tire, and so there's an element of fun to it. But you definitely get your portal guys, guys with the portals. You get the straight axle guys. You get the IFS guys, and sort of kudos to Element. They gave everyone that option, and so the Enduro chassis is kind of a very flexible platform. You can build it with an IFS, or you can just pull that off, and you can put a straight axle on, and you can actually put IFS on the front and the back, although it would be a RFS. But the whole thing can be moved back if you want as well, so you can do more of a fully independent wishbone chassis.
Wow, that's brilliant. So I guess what's the next development now with this Knightrunner? Is there going to be continuous update and new bodies or new things?
Yeah, sort of. I've got a little sneak peek for you guys. Well, I've got a couple of things. So where do I start? Maybe pull this one over. So what Element did when they brought the Knightrunner to market is everyone knows right now there's all these price increases, and Element's development meant they were a little bit ahead of that. So they knew that they wanted to keep a keen price point. So they didn't put as much in as we could have put in because we wanted to keep the price at a good price and not have to increase it and all that kind of good stuff. So, we didn't include inner fenders, even though we designed. We didn't include light buckets, but it's ready to drop light buckets in if you remove the stickers. We didn't include an interior, and we didn't include so there was a bunch of stuff we didn't include, which is all of that is available now. Like I said, Shapeways will do it printed for you. If you've got a print, you can print it yourself. And so you can see it on this. So this is, we call them the X-ray vehicles. So if you ever come to if I ever do an event, I have a tent, and I do all the parts we make are in white, so you can see them. Because when we used to do shows, I'd have like the Knightrunner, it'd be a rig, and somebody came. It was actually, I've got to give credit to Jeff Johnson, who founded Axel. He came up to me once, and he's like, it's really hard to know what you do because you've got all these great looking RC cars in your tent, but I don't, no one would know what it is that you're actually selling because you've got, So have you thought about? So I came up with the idea of, well, if I do everything in clear Lexan and then print everything in white, and if somebody says, what do you make? I just point to all the white stuff. But it's really good for demos. So you can kind of see this, the great thing about the interior is we've designed it to be almost full depth, which if you're a scale guy and you want scale points, you do Scorcher or just for looks. But it still fits over the stock electronics. So I don't think you can really see that. But you don't have to move the battery or get a micro receipt or any of that. It directly bolts in, which is super cool. And then the sneak peek is with all Lexan trucks, you normally get a shallow bed because of the molding constraints of the rear bed. So that's the bed depth you get in the stock Knightrunner, but we've made available. This is the sneak peek, I guess. This is the one part I didn't print in black.
Oh, wow.
You guys can't maybe see that very well.
Oh,
but this is you see it okay? That's the full
detail.
Yeah, it's got. This is an early prototype, so it's got rails and there's 3 versions. So there's a version like this where you can see the rear shock coops because some people like that. There's another version which we've got an officially licensed canyon cooler, which covers it up. And then that's got 2 options: one where you use body clips and one where you use magnet mounts. If you've never used magnet mounts, if you use the right magnets, magnet mounts are the way to go. But there's a big kind of you have to use the right magnets. If you don't use the right magnets, magnet mounts are no good. So this will be available as a print your own part in my manufacturing in about a week. So you guys get to see that. And then it's sort of it's getting more into the fully scale. That means a lot of people ask, are you going to do rear inner fenders? But if you put a rear full drop bed, you don't really need rear inner fenders, but we might just do those for people that don't do the full drop bed. And then everything because we have a license with FrontRunner, the rack sizes on the Knightrunner are the same as the ones we've got in all our FrontRunner parts. So any scale accessory, like we do the high lift jacks or the sand ladders or the toolkits, they all fit there's a system that fits to these racks as well. And so if you want to put an awning on it, you can do that. And you can get all those parts via my Shapeway store in my manufactory, but Element will be selling the rooftop tent and the racks as a separate part. So if you want to add that to any pickup truck you've got, the way we've designed it, you can kind of adjust it. So if you've got any sort of rear pickup and you want to put that bed in, you can adjust the mount so it fits in, and it's got a quick release if you need to get to the body post.
Well, that looks amazing.
Thanks.
It's impressive. So I guess, how do you even start to design this stuff? Where did you start in pages, or what? How do you get from zero to where you have there today?
Yeah, I guess I sort of joke I can't leave anything stock. Like I think a lot of people, I don't think that's unusual. So it doesn't really matter what an RC car company would bring out. I want like something different. So like they'll put one bumper on it, I want the other bumper, or they'll have it all fully kitted out, but I want the stock version. So that's sort of really where it starts. Is I'll look at I guess there's sort of two forms of inspiration. So I'll look at what RC cars that companies are doing. They'll bring something out, and like everyone, I'll look at that and go, "That's cool. I'll do X, Y, and Z," and then I actually will go build that and try and figure it out. And I guess the other side, and that's kind of where the Knightrunner inspiration came from, is I look at the one-to-one full-size world. So, and like a lot of guys, I'm a bit of a car fan. I just don't have the money for a car collection this big in real size. So I would have all those cars as one-to-ones if I could afford them. But so I look at that. So, no one was really doing like an overland style, like fully kit out. Axial nearly got there with the Jeep JT, but they didn't load it up. Didn't put the rooftop tent on it. They didn't do. So it was sort of, to me, it was really obvious that there's a lot of people that would want that style truck, like a US mid-size import truck with an overland kit, and then it's really okay. I very clearly know kind of what it looks like in the real world. How do you translate that down to like a 110-ish size object? So there's a number of, you can. Sometimes I can just like look at it and then make a 3D model of it, and it kind of looks, it's easy. Sometimes I have to scan things. Other times I can buy scan data from real world objects, and you can scale it, and then you have to kind of remodel it, but it gets you all the basic size and proportions. So there's, it's like many art form. You can kind of go at it a number of different ways, and ultimately you have to end up with a 3D model in the computer that you can then export as a printable file.
So you say you're actually scanning the parts yourself?
Yeah, it depends. You have a little handheld scanner that gets you roughly there. Like before scanners, I don't know if any of you. So my first job out of university, I worked on boats. I designed like those luxury white powerboat things that people get drunk in. They sit in harbors. And I got to work with some really skilled carpenters, and so they taught me about patterning. Like I've been to design school and I've been to engineering school, and nobody taught me like how to get a bit of cardboard and a pen, and if you want to make a shape, and then just section it out. So it was actually because they used to have to do that in the boat holes, because you'd have this boat shape and they have to put like furniture in it. So you're trying to put, and so they taught me how to capture those shapes in sections. I remember it was one of the first sort of like real world skills as a designer. I was like 4 years in college and no one taught me some basic stuff, but these carpenters took care of me. So I used to do, before all that kind of stuff, you can do scanning with your iPhone. You can use photogrammetry. You can take a bunch of photographs, and there's software that will give you that shape. Now it doesn't have a size to it. You have to put in another program. But I used to just, and I still do this. If there's an easy template, I'll get a bit of cardboard, I'll cut the shape, and I'll literally tape it to my computer screen. Shouldn't really admit this; it's very low tech. And I'll paste it on my computer screen in the soft program, and then you scale it to the right size. And you can. There's so many different ways you can like capture a shape. It just really depends on the original reference and how complex it is. Like this is the first 3D printed, like people say, would you ever do a 3D printed body? And this was the first project I did in 2013. So this is a Tamiya Sand Scorcher. There's not much left of it now, just the front and rear suspension. And this is a sort of a replica of a Myers Max beach buggy. So Tamiya did a Sand Rover, which was longer, and it was sort of a generic, and it didn't really have the same forms. But I had a bunch of photographic reference for this, and I put it in the computer, and I'd try and trace it. But I must have modeled this like, I don't know, 10 times to try and get the angles and the proportions. And I did 3 or 4 different prints because, you know, if you design something in the computer, you're looking at it through a 2D window, no matter what software you use and how you render it. You can't really, there's all these optical effects when it's in your hand. So you always have to print it out. And if you ever see an car company make something, it doesn't quite look right. It's because they didn't do that. They skipped that step. They did it in the computer. Everyone looked at it, said, yeah, it looks great. And they sent it to tooling. And then the part came back, and it's like,
that was too late.
Yeah, it's too late now. It's $100,000 in tooling you can't fix. So, you know, it's a lot of trial and error sometimes. With the Knightrunner, this is another little sneak peek to so this isn't a 3D body I sell. That wasn't the intent. Is that when I did the initial shapes, you know, in the computer it looked fine. This is actually in sections because these are all different sections. We were trying to figure out the Knightrunner, as you might know, is a 12.8 wheelbase, and normally most crawlers are 12.3, and that's great because then all the bodies out there fit on them. But because we really wanted to capture the look of this style vehicle, which is a crew cab, you know, double cab. We felt like we might have to go a longer wheelbase, but we didn't know. It was a 12.8 axial with the JT did like a 13 inch, maybe 14 inch they got. So we printed out sections, and then we did it at different sizes, and we literally put it on the chassis to see what looked right. And even though it's white and it doesn't have any, you know, it's just a basic shape, I must have done 4 or 5 of those to say, okay, that looks right. It looks, you know, because whilst this is sort of heavily influenced by a real world vehicle, even though it's not officially licensed, you have to stretch and tweak all the proportions to make it fit a 110 chassis. It's not a direct scale. People think you just do the slider and it shrinks, but if you do that, it doesn't always look right. I used to work in Hot Wheels at Mattel. I'm a toy designer by trade. That's why I can do all this stuff. It's sort of after the boat thing, I went to do toys, and I've done toys ever since. But one of the head designers was teaching me that if you take the full-size CAD of BMW and you shrink it down to the 1/64th die cast, it doesn't look right. It looks too tall and too skinny, because when it's big, again, you've got these optical effects. When you stand next to it, you've got like a fisheye effect with your eyes. And so when you shrink it, you don't have that. So the designers were saying, even though BMW would give them the exact CAD for a BMW 5 Series, they would then tweak it and push it and pull it so that when it's this big, it actually looks like the real one, even though they've messed with everything. And that was always a hard thing to do with the car companies, because they sometimes, if they're looking at it on the screen, they're not seeing that. So you have to send them the actual thing to show them what you changed, why you changed. So that was a lot, and that was a little question, but.
Wow, that's interesting. That's a true challenge, actually. I can see a comment of Warwick here. Warwick is our designer, so Warwick does our designs, actually. And he's facing the same challenge of scaling in and out, and all this kind of he does exactly.
Great work. The stuff you guys are putting out is really, really good quality, because there's a lot of like bad CAD files out there. But I've always I think, Nick, that's how we started talking, was you guys started publishing what you were doing, and I was really impressed by the fact that you guys were on the you were seeing what was going on and utilizing the technology. And Warwick's done a great job, buddy. That stuff's looking really cool. The figures and everything, really nice.
Thank you. That's excellent. So, well, very good. So I guess let's. So if anyone has any questions, just pop them in the comments. If any question for James, but I guess what's next for you? This is your biggest collaboration so far?
Yeah, I get asked that question all the time. Obviously, I can't really say what I'm going to do next, but the partnership with Element's been great. So I'm sure we'll be doing something else coming soonish, I guess. But I continue to work with I've got great partnerships with all the top manufacturers. apart from Traxxas. It's not that I don't have a good relationship with Traxxas, I just don't have a relationship with Traxxas. So that would be good to try and get a relationship with Traxxas, I guess. I make parts for their stuff, but we don't have they're not in California, which is probably part of it. But I work with all the top companies, and basically I'm very fortunate in that I normally get an early look at what they're going to do. I may even get an initial prototype or something to help measure and fit stuff to their vehicles. If I'm not helping them design the vehicle, I've only really done that with Element, Proline, and Vanquish, where I've actually done the CAD that came on some of the production vehicle. So, I know that there's a lot going on in the industry. All the companies are still bringing out and developing stuff, so that there will definitely be new stuff from Knight Customs and hopefully another collaboration.
Wow, good luck with that. I think what you're doing with Knight Customs is quite amazing, because it's so accessible to anyone around the world. I mean, if you don't have your printer, it's quite easy to go over to get it printed out from Shapeways. Or if you do, then you offer the files at such accessible prices too, that everyone can get in on the action.
Yeah, thanks, BJ. It was an interesting shift, because initially Shapeways kind of promised that there was sort of this new age manufacturing where they would just print the parts for you and it would be cheap and the prices would go down. And it hasn't really worked out that way. So over the years, the actual prices have gone up. And it got to a point where you could either order all the stuff for a Jeep that I made or buy a 3D printer. And it was then easy to say, well, I probably want all the stuff for the Jeep and I'm going to want another one and another one. So all of a sudden it's like $500 for a printer was really cheap. So when I saw that happening, when I started, I didn't have a 3D printer. I just used Shapeways printers. I then got my own FDM printer. It's all you need, like I said before. And it was a big sort of risk, because when you make your CAD file available, even though we have a license agreement that you agree to, it's not really, I'm not going to track down every single guy that doesn't follow the rules. And luckily, fortunately, the community is they do a good job, being for the most part honest and above board. And they support me, and they say, if you're selling the files, I'll buy one off you. Even though my friend Bob's got one and I could just borrow it, I'll buy one from you, because that's why we make it cheap. It's sort of like the Apple iPod model, right? If you make the file cheap enough, then people are more likely to buy to support you, because they're not charging a fortune, versus the more you make, the more expensive it is, the harder it is for them to get it. And then the temptation to say, I'll borrow it from Bob, whoever Bob is. You're out somewhere. So that's the model. And in fact, it was an experiment. We're the first people to do it. And everyone said, well, if you put your files for sale, you're giving them away and you won't have a business model. You'll sell one and that guy will share it with everyone. But that's actually not been the case. It's been very, there's a few bad apples, and the community will let me know who they are and we have a discussion. Sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's not. But for the most part, people have, we're doing a better business selling part files than we're now selling printed files, which is great, because at the end of the day, my goal is to get as many of my designs in as many people's hands as want them as possible. And if I can make a little bit of money along the way, that's great.
That's great. I mean, it shows how much the community respects you as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of small companies, right? So you've got the big ones that make the ready to runs, but then all the accessories is companies like myself. There's a number of us out there that do similar stuff. And I think most people sort of have a good understanding of that, which is great, because I think a lot of people in the hobby industry understand what it takes to make something. So they understand the work, and you put in there a little bit more respectful. Is probably the right word. Yeah. Say that now. Sorry? I
guess anyone understand that if they buy the parts and they get more parts after, I mean, the more you get rewarded with that, the more you're going to make after all.
And I just do think it's a better model if I've got, for example, a roof rack and I own the file as a hobbyist, and I take my Jeep out and I roll it and I break the roof rack, I can just go print another one. You don't have to wait, you don't have to ship it. And it's so once you've got the file, you can print as many as you need, so the repairing of it is much better. And and I think you're always going to want new different sizes and all different stuff, so that it still is sort of best of both worlds in many ways.
So talking about the material as well, is there a particular material that you recommend for printing?
Yeah, Yeah, so everything, so these parts I'm holding, this is an exhaust for this. This is an optional high clearance exhaust for the Knightrunner, which is more scale and it gives you more travel in the rear. This is printed in PLA. So an FDM printer is the basic hobby. You guys use a resin printer, which is like the next level up, which gives you super fine details, and for small parts is really good. If you go to Shapeways and buy like our lenses or like small fine detail parts, they're normally printed on a resin printer. But this is an FDM printer, very basic, easy to run. PLA, it's like it's recyclable. I think it's an environmentally friendly material. I can't tell you exactly how it's made. Nick might know, but it's PLA. Now PLA is great, super easy to print. You don't need a heated bed. It's not toxic. It's really easy to print. It's great for prototyping. It's not great if you leave it like in the back of your car on the shelf. People will tell you that it can melt. So the reason it's easy to print is it melts easily.
Right.
The reason it's not. So I recommend it for prototyping and figuring out sizes and getting your printer settings right. But actually, the material I recommend the most is PETG, P-E-T-G, which is the next level up from PLA. And PETG is better because it has to print a little hotter, but it means that, you know, if you leave your 110 crawler in the back of your car on a sunny day, you're not going to come back and it's not going to have melted. I've known people that have bought inner fenders from other companies that printed in PLA, and over time they've just sagged. So PETG is always what I recommend. And then if you've got the next level up is ABS.
Right.
Next level again is nylon. So ABS, as many of you might know, is what most model kits are made in.
Yes.
So it's sort of a very high grade plastic, so thermoplastic or thermoset, to get my materials lessons. But that's sort of like the best if you want it closest to a model kit. And then nylon is we recommend for if you're using suspension parts or things that are going to get a bit more of a hit. So all our parts from Shapeways are printed on an SLS printer, which is the sort of, those things are $200,000 industrial printers. They don't have a filament, they have a dust. And they basically hit it with a layer or a bonding agent, depending on the machine. And so you get nylon prints, some of the sort of the best level of balance of detail and durability. Some people use them for suspension arms. I normally try and so for a roof rack, which if your rig rolls, it isn't brittle, it won't break, it might chip or scratch a little bit, but it's also light and stuff, so it's got a good, it's quite flexible. So most of the stuff from Shapeways is in nylon. And that's a little harder to print at home. It is possible, but you need to be that kind of third or fourth layer up and probably on a little bit more expensive printer to do it.
Right, okay. Well, I guess nylon is like the premium material that they used to use in, say, associated RC10s and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same. So nylon 12 is what Shapeways print in, and the RC10 original white parts were all machined in nylon 12. They have glass fight. The technology now is, but yeah, it was good enough for an RC10 and 85, and I still got one, and you can run it today. So that it's good enough. If you design the part right, it's all, you have to design to the material constraint. So you can design a very durable part in the material, a very fragile part in the material if you're not paying attention to certain things. So snorkels, fun story if you don't indulge me. When I first did a snorkel on a Jeep, I did it on a resin printer because I wanted to get all the grates in. So I was going to look and see if I've got one, but everyone knows what a snorkel is, right? So I did it in a resin. It looked beautiful. And, resin's quite expensive, so I made it hollow. And the joke was when I'd go to meet my mates, we'd go crawling, that you'd literally look at the snorkel and it would shatter. And there was one time where we got out, we got ready to go on the trail. I went like 10 feet. The rig looked at a rock and it felt like the snorkel just broke in half and fell off, which is just ridiculous. So that's where I started. And then I tried to do like flexible, I used fuel tubing to make the top flex so it wouldn't like snap. And what we ended up doing was figuring out if you just made it in solid nylon, they're pretty indestructible because it's a thick section. It goes all the way up. You put 3 screws in it. And so the snorkels we make now, I've done the 12-hour fix enduro in California, which is 12 hours nonstop rock crawling around a 1 mile loop and just keep going around. And after about 4 hours, you're not paying attention. You're bouncing off everything. The rig's rolling down the rocks. So it's a real good test. I use it to like test the durability of my parts because you can't baby it. And we've had snorkels like get our fix certification for surviving 12 hours of idiot driving, basically.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Very good. Well, do we have any more questions for James?
Perhaps we should ask our viewers if they've got any questions.
That's right. Yeah, let's give it a minute or so. And
from your Knightrunner car, James, what is your favorite RC car?
You get that question right. If your house is on fire,
that's right.
Which one do you grab? Kid under one arm, you've got that RC car. I would say I've thought a lot about this. I think it's this one. I'll go grab it 1 second. Some of you might know what this is. So this is the first RC car I think I ever wanted. It's either this or the Wild Willie. I can't remember. This is the Tamiya 3-speed Hilux. So back in the day, you see it's got 3-speed transmission. It's all metal. It's got real. Now this you're like, yes, RC 4-wheel drive do that. This was like 1985, I think this came out.
How come your one doesn't have all white silicon hanging out the transmission?
Oh, because I very, very carefully put it together. I've actually funny. I've got gaskets, but I just haven't put those in. But this is this was a fortune back in the day. They're probably just expensive now. This was the first vintage car I bought in my 20s when I started my vintage collection again. I found it in the back of an RC magazine. It was £200. I drove to London to get it. It was in a guy's garage, and it didn't look like this, but it was really complete. And this has been my longest restoration. I've only recently finished it. But there's just something about, it's a pity because this still is on the level of a lot of scale crawlers. And Tamiya did this like years ago. Their current 3-speeds aren't anywhere near as good as this. And the re-release Bruiser is amazing, but that's the version, the bigger wheel version of this. But this is just such a phenomenal model. So this is probably the one I would grab if I could only take one.
I don't have all the really individual leaf springs and the cast housing for the gearbox.
Oh yeah, it's terrible though. So when I first got this, I'm like, there's something wrong with it. The suspension doesn't work. It's got the leaf springs, right? So if you get like an RC 4-wheel drive, it's a trail finder, it's got the leaf springs, they work, right? You get a lot of movement. There's no travel. So when you watch the Tamiya videos and they're going down the hill and they're bouncing, but it's all in slow-mo. So when you see it in real life, it's like you have to make sure it's fully Loctite, but it's got the shifting gears which you do in the transmitter, which I love because it's vintage correct. It grinds like the clutches. It's
so good. It's so scale.
It is so scale.
Yeah.
It's so scale. But
that switch is huge, James.
The what? The switch?
The switch, the factory-fitted switch. And the big sandwich-sized battery that they had in there.
Oh yeah, look, I got it here.
6-volt one.
Yeah, no, it's in the box. The battery is literally, isn't it? It's like this big. I won't take this off, and it weighs a ton. I mean, it's amazing the battery technology, how it's advanced. That was like a 4,000 milliamp hour because it's so big.
Yeah, they would have been D-size batteries.
It was giant. Like I won't get it. It'll take me 10 minutes to get it. But the thing is, it's a slab, so I can't put it on the shelf with the battery in it because I think it will pull the shelf down. Yeah, amazing. And Tamiya still make amazing stuff, but this is the pinnacle of their off-road stuff. In my mind, anyway. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Thanks.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Very good. All right, then. Well, James, thank you very much for making this, time to join us tonight. And congratulations on your collaboration with Tino Scorcher and Element. It's just brilliant. Lots of work you put in over the years, and it's a brilliant reward. And I guess it's gonna, help the RC evolve and continue to improve and be always exciting. So thank you for joining us, and we're going to see you in store one day. We can do a real live with a real car in person.
In our studio.
Yeah,
And you have to consider yourself, James. Like I said, your name's on the box. Like of the crawler and of the scale RC sector, you are the Masami, and it's great that you're in Australia and somewhat local.
Yeah, well, when we get through this lockdown, Jenna, it'll be great to meet up with you in person. I really look forward to it. And thank you so much for having me on and being able to talk RC. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Have a good night. And again, thank you for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.